I was nobody at Los Alamos. I didn't have my degree yet. I was 24 years old, the youngest person they'd ever made a group leader. But that didn't mean anyone took me seriously. The great minds were there. Oppenheimer, Bohr, Fermi. They worried about the big decisions. I worried about nothing important. I was just flittering around underneath, doing calculations, running the computing room. Nobody watched the quiet kid from New York. So nobody noticed when I started opening their safes. Every single one of them. The filing cabinets that contained the most dangerous secrets in human history. The blueprints for the atomic bomb. The schedules for plutonium production. The purification procedures. How much material was needed. How the neutrons were generated. The design. The dimensions. Everything. And I left notes inside, just to let them know I'd been there. This is the story of how the kid they ignored cracked every safe at Los Alamos. When I arrived in 1943, the laboratory was still being built. Everything was rushed. We were racing against Hitler, against time itself. And the security? It was a joke. All the secrets of the atomic bomb were kept in filing cabinets. Some had padlocks. Most had nothing at all. I could open them with a screwdriver and a bent paperclip in about 2 minutes. I told the security officers. I said, look, this is dangerous. Anyone could walk in here and take whatever they wanted. They nodded politely, and they did nothing. So I decided to show them. I started picking locks, not to steal anything, just to prove a point. I'd open a cabinet, look at the documents inside, close it again. Nobody knew. Then the army got worried. They installed better locks. Real combination locks with 3 numbers. They thought that would stop me. It didn't. I bought a book on safecracking. It was mostly useless. It told me to look for numbers that had personal meaning to the owner, birthdays and anniversaries, that kind of thing. But I was a physicist. I did not want tricks. I wanted to understand the system, so I studied the locks. I learned how the mechanism worked. I discovered that you did not need the exact combination. If you were close enough, within 5 numbers, the lock would still open. That meant that instead of 1 million possible combinations, there were only about 8,000. 8,000 is a lot, but I had time. You see, there wasn't much to do in the New Mexico desert. We were isolated, cut off from the world. No entertainment, no distractions. And my wife was dying. Arlene was in a sanatorium in Albuquerque, about 2 hours away. Tuberculosis. The doctor said she might have 2 years, maybe less. Every weekend, I borrowed a car and drove across the desert to see her. We'd talk. We'd laugh. I'd pretend everything was fine. Then, I'd drive back to Los Alamos and try not to think about it. The safecracking helped. It gave my mind something to focus on. A puzzle to solve. A system to crack. While my colleagues worked on the bomb, I worked on their locks. I discovered that most physicists are terrible at security. They would leave their combinations on the factory settings, or they would write them down somewhere obvious, or they would use numbers that meant something to them. One colleague had set his combination to 27, 18, 28. I tried it on a hunch. It worked. You know why? Because E, the base of natural logarithms, equals 2.71828, a physicist's combination. Of course, if you're finding this story interesting, subscribe to this channel. I tell stories about the greatest minds in physics and the moments that revealed who they really were. After a while, I had cracked so many safes that people started to believe I could open anything. That was not true. There were plenty of locks I had not figured out yet, but I never corrected them. I liked the reputation. Then came Frederick de Hoffmann. De Hoffmann was a colleague of mine. He had 9 filing cabinets in his office. 9. All of them filled with documents about the atomic bomb, production schedules, research notes, everything. I had never tried to crack his combinations, but one Saturday, I needed a document for a report I was writing. The library was closed. I remembered that de Hoffmann had a copy. So I went to his office. His secretary's desk was unlocked. I opened the drawer and started looking through the papers. And there, on top of one document, someone had written pi equals 3.14159. Why would a secretary need the numerical value of pi? She was not doing calculations. I walked to the first filing cabinet. I tried 31, 41, 59. It opened. I tried the next cabinet. Same combination. All 9 cabinets. The same combination. 31, 41, 59. Pi. I could not believe it. The most sensitive documents at Los Alamos were protected by a number that any mathematician would guess in 5 seconds. I could have just taken what I needed and left. But I had a better idea. I opened the first cabinet and left a note inside. The note read, "Same guy." I opened the second cabinet and left another note. The note read, "Wise guy." Then I opened the third cabinet and signed my name, Feynman the Safecracker. I took the document I needed and went back to work. Then I waited. A few days later, I was into Hoffmann's office when he opened his first cabinet. He found the note. Same guy. His face went white. You have to understand, there were real fears about spies at Los Alamos. We knew the Soviets were trying to steal our secrets. De Hoffmann thought someone had broken in, someone who knew about the security failures, someone who was still there. He searched frantically through his files. Nothing was missing. But then he found the second note. Wise guy. Now he was terrified. He was convinced a Soviet agent had access to his cabinets. He started going through everything, checking every document, every page. I stood in the corner, watching, trying not to laugh, also trying not to get killed. Finally, I guided him to the third cabinet. He opened it. He found the note with my name. For a moment, I thought he might actually murder me, but then his face changed. Relief. Overwhelming relief. He ran over and hugged me. He was so happy that his secrets were safe, that it was just me, that America's atomic bomb wasn't compromised. After that, my reputation was complete. Everyone at Los Alamos knew about Feynman the Safecracker. The generals sent out a memo warning everyone to protect their combinations from me, not to improve security in general, just to stop me specifically. I found that hilarious. But here's what nobody talks about. While I was cracking safes, my wife was getting worse. Tuberculosis was spreading. The treatments were not working. I could see it in her eyes every weekend. She was fading. On June 16, 1945, I got a phone call in the computing room. Arlene was dying. I borrowed Klaus Fuchs's car and drove as fast as I could to Albuquerque. I sat with her for hours, holding her hand, watching the clock on her nightstand. At 9:21 in the evening, she stopped breathing. The clock stopped too. It had been broken, just a coincidence. But I wrote down the time in my notebook anyway. Death, 9:21 p.m. 1 month later, I watched the first atomic bomb explode in the New Mexico desert. I was the only one who did not wear the dark protective glasses. I watched through the windshield of a truck instead. I wanted to see it with my own eyes. The flash was the brightest thing I had ever seen. All I could think was that Arlene would have wanted to know about this. People ask me why I cracked all those safes. They think it was a game, a joke, a way to show off. Maybe it was, but it was also something else. When you're 24 years old and your wife is dying, and you're helping to build a weapon that might end civilization, you need something to hold on to, something you can control, something that makes sense. The locks made sense. The combinations followed rules. If you understood the system, you could crack it. Life wasn't like that. Life was chaos, loss, things you couldn't fix no matter how smart you were. But a safe, I could open. So I did. Every single one. The kid they ignored cracked every safe at Los Alamos. Not because I wanted to steal secrets, but because I needed to prove, at least to myself, that I could solve something, that I wasn't completely powerless. If this story moved you, please leave a like and subscribe to this channel. Every week I share a new story about the people who changed physics and the moments that made them human.